These are Itsemutse or Itsen hats, which originate actually from the Shetland Islands, but they ended up being a part of the traditional costume for boys and men from the Dutch island of Marken, but only in the 19th century. You might wonder, how did these hats from the Shetland Islands end up in a place like Marken? Well, there were a lot of herring fishermen in Marken, and besides fishing in the former inland sea, the Zuiderzee, they would also fish around the Shetland Islands. And they would call the Shetland Islands Itland or Hitland, which is the Old Dutch word for the Shetland Islands. Now that's also the reason why these are called Itsen mutsen or Itza hats. In Dutch it's called Itsbreien or Its knitting. Now these men from Marken, they were fishing around the Shetland Islands, like I just said, and they would be gone from their home for many weeks, and on Sundays they usually had a day off to go to church and other things, and also whenever the weather was too bad to go fishing. So where would most of these fishermen go? These fishing boats would dock at the harbor of Lerwick, which was and still is the most important city in the Shetland Islands. And here they could shop and go to church. Besides the traditional souvenirs that people would get, they would also get some knitwear from Lerwick. And they ended up taking these ones back to Marken. Now these colorful wool knitted hats were also a great addition to the traditional wear of the people from Marken, especially because the costume for the women was very colorful. And also traditional clothing was also constantly developing. A lot of people seem to think that, it was just here and this is that and nothing changes, but that's wrong. Sometimes things were added, sometimes things fell out of fashion again. That's also why the men of Marken would wear, and also the boys, would wear these hats in the 19th century, and in the 20th century these fell out of fashion again. Now the men and boys of Marken would wear the Itzenmuts as a nightcap, in bed, in-house as a house cap, but they would also wear them outside the house, during all kinds of activities. There were even special summer and winter hats. This, for instance, is a winter version. It's double-sided, which is extra warm. It's also longer and bigger than the summer ones. And this small woolen muts or hat was for summer. It's a lot smaller, as you can see. It doesn't even cover any of the ears. Now there are still some questions surrounding the Itsemutse, because for instance some people say that people would copy the knitting of the Shetland Islands, of these hats and these designs on the island of Marken, but other people say that they were never made on Marken, but only brought straight away from the Shetland Islands. And there were all sorts of patterns and colors used for these hats, obviously, but for the people from Marken they didn't have any meaning. Also, they were also worn on people's deathbed, and in that case they would wear a navy blue one.